What is up guys, welcome back to another TBC Classic video. So today we're taking a break from gold farming, leveling up characters and doing stuff in the game, and we are talking about some TBC Classic news. Basically, where the game is at right now, where we might be going in the future, the possibility of TBC Fresh, and so on. So today we're taking a look at 3 primary news articles. Number 1 is the possibility of Classic Fresh servers, how they will progress, and we're looking at some player feedback on those things. Number 2 is the upcoming change to feral druids, where Blizzard is basically balancing how you regain energy as a feral druid. So now, if you haven't been able to play feral before, now you can. Basically, it's much easier to power shift, you get more energy, and feral is once again playable. The last one we'll talk about is the honor changes, or basically the honor system itself, the battleground queues, and stuff like that as well, so let's get into it. Number 1, the possibility of fresh classic servers. So Blizzard recently sent out a couple of different surveys, and this is for example one of them. So overall, how much do you like or dislike the following changes that you may potentially see on a classic fresh start server? So in this feedback right here, or in this loop, in this poll, basically they're asking for player feedback on different changes that could be coming to Fresh Classic. So this means they are pretty much looking into making Fresh Classic servers, and they're also looking to make some changes that we didn't have back in Classic itself. So the first one is faster experience rates for leveling. So there you can press strongly disagree and strongly like and anywhere between. Personally, I don't think we should have those because, well, leveling is a major thing about Fresh Classic, or Classic itself, or Vanilla I should say. The leveling adventure is part of the adventure, and for a lot of people, leveling is the adventure. So number 2, barbershop doesn't really matter. It's only cosmetic, that one would be great to be honest, so sure, why not, just give us the barbershop, that's fine. No world buffs in raids, this would definitely be interesting, and to be honest, I would prefer this, like no world buffs in raids, or no world buffs period. I would love to see a classic version of the game without world buffs, because world buffs makes it very meta, so some classes will benefit a lot from those world buffs, which makes them incredibly strong. And not just in raids, but in the open world, I would just love to see play a version of Classic where there are no world buffs at all. So for me, I strongly like that idea. Number 2. Increased debuff limit on raid bosses. This one could be interesting, but what could also be interesting is to either decrease it, or if they are going to increase it, then also they should probably increase the boss health or the boss difficulty in my opinion, because I don't want to see Classic become even easier than it currently is. So if they are going to increase the debuff limit, they should also increase the difficulty of the bosses themselves. Next up is a black market auction house for vanity items. This one, like as a gold farmer, gold maker, and someone who has some gold and loves making gold and spending gold, this would be very interesting. I'm not much of a raider or PvPer in the game right now, I just enjoy farming gold and doing vanity stuff. So for me, this would be very interesting. It really depends on what they are able to put on the black market, and which items they can throw in there, without people getting angry about it. So if they could implement this in a good way, then I don't see any damages by it really, and I only see it being positive. It could also drive a lot of like community stuff in the game. People could farm more gold, it makes more sense. You want to buy stuff and it's just for vanity. So I just see this being great, it could be a good addition, as long as they make it correctly. So next up, the original Alterac Valley design, which basically means more guards and more difficulty games in general. I don't see why not, it could be interesting to see, and I'm actually surprised that wasn't back in like actual Classic as well. Maybe because we were playing on a later patch of Classic, so maybe give us like the pre-nerf version of the Battlegrounds as well, just to try it out. It could mean longer games as well, but it makes it more interesting, and people that didn't get to experience that back in the day can experience it now. So next up, more difficult raid bosses and dungeon encounters. This one is a big yes for me personally. I feel like in Classic, like back in Vanilla Classic, not TBC Classic, but Classic, Dungeons were way too easy. You were just doing them either to level up or to farm your previs. There were almost never any wipes. People could do Molten Core at legitimately level 56. People cleared it without barely any level 60s in their raid. And in general, raids were way too easy. So giving us both an increase in difficulty, both on raids and dungeons, could be very fun. It makes it more fun to play the game itself, makes it more challenging, and it could possibly bring in some new metas within the game. Like if they make dungeons more difficult, maybe speedrunning dungeons could be something that like a community-driven activity as well. But when it's super easy, it's not that fun. But when it becomes just a tiny bit challenging, it's really interesting. So, next one, increased rate of item drops. Personally, I don't want to see this one. Maybe for raids we could get a couple more items, so people don't spend eternity farming for certain items. But in the open world and stuff like that, definitely not. Like rare items should be somewhat rare, but when it comes to regular rare raid items that aren't particularly rare, maybe they could increase the drop rates from raid bosses, but keep the legendaries, like keep those rare. But when it comes to tier sets and trinkets and weapons, maybe increase the drop rates of those. That's just my opinion though. Earn gold at a faster rate, I don't really see why. If you earn gold faster, then having the difference between having 1,000 gold and 10,000 gold is nothing if the purchasing power is the same. So I don't really see why you would want to earn gold at faster rates. The purchasing power is basically determined by how much gold is in the community. So you can inflate that number as much as you want, but it will just increase the price of things as well. The one thing that this kinda benefits, I guess, is that people can buy their epic mounts faster, so maybe increase it a slight bit, I'm not sure, but I don't really see why this would even be a question. Maybe because of the Swift mount, the 100% mount, so people can buy that faster to get their 1,000 gold faster, but that's pretty much it. Summoning stones at dungeon entrances, sure, why not? I don't really see any downsides of this one. We have it in TBC right now, and as long as we don't get a dungeon finder where you automatically get teleported to the dungeon, I think this is fine. It still requires 2 people to go there by themselves, so sure, why not? Blizzard also sent out a very similar poll as well, that is basically the same questions, but instead of asking you whether you like these changes or not, they're basically asking you, if these changes were introduced, how likely or unlikely are you to start playing on one of the fresh start servers. So we're not going to talk about these, we just talked about everything, but it's just another survey for the same things. So the last survey we'll take a look at today is basically this one. So for WoW Classic Fresh Start Realms, we are considering accelerating the cadence of new phase releases and making some changes to allow players to keep up. Which cadence would you prefer most for WoW Classic Fresh Start Realm? So here we're looking at the first option, which is the same as the original WoW Classic cadence from August 2019, which is 21 to 22 months, or you can have an accelerated 12-month cadence with a new Fresh Start Realm restarted every 12 months. You also have another one, which is basically every half year, so accelerated 6-month cadence with a new Fresh Start Realm restarted every 6 months. So for this one, I think every 6 months could be great. Maybe like 8 months as well. 6 months could be a bit short, but if they release several raid tiers or release them very close to each other, it could be fun. The thing is, if you look at WoW Classic from back in the day as well, after 6 months the actual player base had gone down by a lot, so by having those fresh starts, you would bring it back up. You also want to make sure you don't have too many of them, because then the amount of players you will get back for every single fresh start goes down and down. It keeps diminishing, but every single fresh start is always fantastic. It's always fun to play on fresh starts in general. So every 6 to 12 months could be great. I don't want to see the exact same cadence as we had back in Classic. I would definitely want faster restarts, so more fresh start servers, but I also want the realms you have to still be there, but you still have the option to start fresh. So with that out of the way, we are now going to take a look at the Feral Druid energy change as well, and for this we're going to take a look at the Wowhead post. So basically, TLDR, we are bringing back WoW Classic Feral Druid Powershifting by moving Druid energy regen to the constant 2-second slow tick loop. Cat Druids will receive 20 energy every 2 seconds. Their energy will never get a partial tick outside of that 2-second loop, and with careful timing, they can receive their full 20 energy regen tick immediately after shifting. That playstyle, often called Powershifting, was greatly missed by some players in TBC, and basically everything in this post is basically them saying that they messed up something, and nerfing Druids was never the intent. It was just the results of the change were not matching up with the design intent of the designs themselves. In a hashtag some changes world, we think it's important to consider both the original intent and the original execution of changes, and this looks like an example where the version 2.4.3, the patch that Burning Crusade Classic 2.5.1 is based on, exhibits a behavior that was unintended at the time. And we can see that both the Druids and the energy regen system were changed again in patch 3.0.2. And basically, everything they're doing here, or the results, the changes, should result in Cat Druids receiving energy at a more constant rate, and additionally, Druids can once again power shift by timing their shapeshifts to optimize their energy use. After this change, Druids should almost never receive less than 20 energy in a single regen tick. And if you go down and just scroll and read the comments here, a lot of people are really happy because, well, basically Feral Druids are once again playable. Because you couldn't really power shift and you had way less energy regen, people were actually using some clever potions from way back to increase their energy regen to make it playable. So this change right here makes it playable by itself. Feral Druids should see a slight DPS increase and should once again be playable. Now next up, I also want to take a look at the honor problem in the Burning Crusade. So if you're playing a Horde in TBC Classic, you pretty much know about this problem already, but basically it's almost impossible for Horde to get honor in TBC. It takes a much longer time than Alliance, and that's because of the queue times. And the queue times is basically caused by the massive Horde population that is now about 61% on America or USA on PvP servers. You can see a massive divide between Alliance and Horde players. And all the way down here you can also see some Horde players will experience over 1 hour queue for every single battleground. And this makes it very difficult to farm honor gear, and based on some math that I've seen from some streamers, as an Alliance player you would have to farm PvP for about 100 hours including the queues to get your full blue PvP set. I'm not really sure about that math, I'm not doing any PvP myself, but if you take that math and you put in as an Alliance, you will get a battleground between 1 to maybe 3 minutes within the queuing up, and as a Horde you have to wait an entire hour. So if we as Alliance players have to grind for 100 hours, you can easily multiply that by 10 for Horde players, so 1000 hours just to get your blue honor gear. By the way, that is not best in slot, it is just for pre-arena. Now a lot of people have spoken out about this. You can basically see some tweets all the way down here as well. A lot of content creators have talked about this issue, and to be honest, this should be a very easy fix. There's two things they can do. One thing is being said right here, like potential solutions. They can introduce the mercenary mode that we have in retail, which basically allows you to play for the other faction when you want to, just to increase your queue times. So if one faction has a faster queue time, you can go into mercenary mode and join that faction. You also have the problem that sometimes Horde wins more battlegrounds than Alliance, so you kind of have to pick and choose. You can have faster queues and lose more, or you can have slower queues and win more. But even if Alliance loses every single battleground and Horde wins every single battleground, right now, because of the battleground queue times, Alliance still gets a lot more honor points than Horde. And one thing they could do, which actually astounds me that they haven't done already, is to increase the honor gains from battlegrounds. We are living in 2021 right now. People have a lot of things to do outside of playing the game itself, and grinding for tens, maybe hundreds of hours to obtain blue PvP gear that will be replaced by arena gear later on, it's just, it's not worth the time really. But again, for PvP, you really want to have the resilience as well, so you kind of have to if you want to do hardcore PvP. So I don't really see why they don't just give us like 5 times or 10 times as much honor points. I don't see any problems with that whatsoever. You are just getting faster pre-bis for arena that will be replaced by PvP gear later on anyway, so I don't see the point in just up the amount of honor points you get for every single battleground. Shouldn't really be a problem. But even if they do that, I still think they have to do something about the queue times as well. So to me, the perfect solution would be to introduce the mercenary mode and also multiply the honor gains for every single battleground or every single honorable kill. And you know what, guys, that is pretty much it for today's video. I just wanted to do a news recap. We haven't done one of those since TBC came out. There's lots of things happening right now. There's lots of things that needs to be fixed within TBC. The honor problem is a huge problem that I really want to see them fix sooner rather than later. And I've always been really hyped for Classic Fresh, and I really hope they go through with Classic Fresh. And also, make sure you let me know in the comments down below if there's anything on that survey that you agree with or disagree with, so we can give Blizzard some actual feedback based on what we prefer for the Fresh Classic servers. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more TBC Classic content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.